Go. Okay. Welcome everybody to This Week in Wrestling. I'm your host, Foulmouth Bobbitt. Today is JP, Heather, and Wendy. How are y'all tonight?
We are doing good, man. We are doing good.
Good, good. Also joining us is the Sinister One. How are you tonight?
What's up?
You can come on, Kev. You can come on.
Friend. Oh, okay.
And also joining us is Miss Ronnie. How are you tonight?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, yeah. And last but not least, we got a special guest host, the Sex Bear Canadian Basin. How you tonight, bro?
I'm fucking ready.
Gina and Trek will be here shortly, I'm sure. So I kind of we have. I want to save the big one for the end, so we can talk about other stuff until Gina gets here. I know she.
Yeah,
wants
do you
to
want to go into prediction news? What do you want to start off with, there, Mr. Basin?
We just talk. Let's just talk. Cause I mean, this week has been really. It's
Rough.
been one of those fucking weeks, man. We'll talk about the really big one, which was the women at the whenever Gina and Trek get here. Well, Gina, I don't give a shit about Trek, but whenever Gina gets here, because I know she wants to give her input. Let's talk about Kofi Kingston. Let's talk about that. That's a conversation we can go with for about a little bit. Let's go.
Good God.
I'm gauntlet matched out.
I am too. I am very that they could have, and it ties into the women, what they did on Tuesday. They could have used that time, some of that time, to build the women's title for SmackDown, and they didn't do it because they were invested. They're trying to tell the story with Kofi Kingston, which tells me, and this is just my opinion, I mean, like your guys' thoughts, which tells me that they really are not investing in the women's division.
No,
They're more worried about what Kofi Kingston has. You look at what they've done the last 2 weeks on fucking SmackDown. And what they did Monday at the beginning of the show, they gave the women who ultimately were announced as the main event at WrestleMania, they gave them 8 fucking minutes at the beginning of the show, and that was it. Yeah, there was little mentions here and there, but they didn't do anything with it. That shit at the beginning of the show sucked. It sucked the wind right out of me for the show. I almost ended the show on Monday. That's how shitty that segment was.
It was pointless. There was nothing towards it.
It didn't do anything, and I made that mention. Because did I not? I said,
no,
what the fuck did this have to do with their feud? Yes, all 3 of them were involved in the match, but what did this accomplish?
It really didn't
accomplish anything. It accomplished somebody saying, well, I beat somebody sooner than another person. Who fucking cares? Face to face. I want a face-to-face competition with these. What they're doing this next week, they should have done last week.
Yeah.
Well, I've actually, I don't watch it religiously or anything, but I feel like what you said a couple weeks ago is spot on. They blew their load way too early with the women, and now they're just kind of coasting until the actual match. And they really sucked the wind out of that actual event because they've gone as far as they wanted to 3 weeks before Mania. And with the Kofi thing, I think they realized the fans were reacting a certain way, and with their idea of now trying to listen, I guess, to the audience a bit more, they're now trying to shoehorn a storyline in too quickly for that. I don't know. That's the way I look at it.
I agree. Basement hit it head on with me with Kofi Kingston. Johnny,
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
and like I said, after Fastlane, it was just like, okay, you've got 2.5 more weeks before Mania. What are they going to do? And you got the pointless beat the clock. Now this coming week, it's like, okay, well, we have to interact with each other and be in the triple threat. And then with Kofi, I mean, we already had the gauntlet match. He didn't win an elimination chamber. Now you throw Xavier and Big E into it, and it's like it's the second hour has been the gauntlet matches. It's like there's just no creative writing for that second hour because they're doing the gauntlet match. And even if they would have had the gauntlet match, why couldn't they just have the teams do what the Usos did and get it over with in 10, 15 minutes? I forfeit, or one lays down and lets them pin so that they can move on to the next team. And then, of course,
Ultimately, though, Ronnie, the teams that were before the Usos were all heel teams. It makes no sense. It makes no sense for the Bar, who, if you remember, at Fastlane, squashed Kofi Kingston in that match. So why would they lay down?
well, it just because at the end everybody was out there clapping.
But
I mean-
what those teams, those 2 teams or 3 teams or whatever it was that were there before did not come out. They were all baby faces that came out. Well, Kevin Owens is a baby face right now. So I mean, I get what you're saying, but
It shouldn't have happened to begin with.
Well,
was
that
just like,
being said, I didn't. They should have had him in a match this week with Eric Rowan, not or something like that, where instead of. But see, it's the New Day thing. It's a New Day thing, and I didn't mind it, but the time could have gone to something else.
Right,
Instead,
and that's what I was
instead
saying.
of having just a gauntlet match, like they had to win a handicap match where it's just them 2 against everybody, the heel teams. Instead of having a gauntlet match, they could have just had a regular handicap match against the Bar and freaking Daniel Bryan and whoever and Eric Rowan. That would have made more sense than them or Fatal 4-Way.
Right, but it just seems that when they don't have anything written or they have no creative idea, it's like, okay, we're going to do a gauntlet match and we'll waste an hour.
I
And
think
that's what it just seems it's been.
I
And
think
even that beat the clock thing, which was pointless. It's just like, okay, we're going to announce that the women are going to be the main event, and you're going to do this beat the clock challenge for the first 15 minutes of the show, which
it wasn't even the
amounts
first
to
15
nothing.
minutes. What Becky or Ronda came out, cut a promo. She left or was getting, she did that whole, no, I got a couple more things to say. She drug on the segment
right, with the
to
dropping
make
of the
it
mic.
15 minutes, but the matches, it lasted 8 minutes.
Right. The whole segment itself, that first 15 minutes with the announcements and the match itself, it was pointless, but at least it didn't take up the full hour, but it was just like a mini gauntlet to run it through. And it's just lack of creative writing. And like we had said, I mean, after Fastlane and even before Fastlane, they have to do something to take it into WrestleMania. What were they going to do? And this is what we got.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't they do the Kofi Kingston gauntlet the week beforehand?
Yes, where it was
Yeah.
1-on-one.
Okay.
Yeah, he had to beat Daniel Bryan and he couldn't do it.
Okay, so they're doing back-to-back gauntlets on the same show. What other TV show can basically have the same fucking storyline one week and then do it again in the next week and actually not get shit on?
I don't know.
Like, it's like soap opera writing. If you watch any type of soap opera back in the day, they have these multiple characters that they write all these intricate storylines and somehow they blend together. with this, it's just been the focus on the three women, Kofi and Daniel Bryan. And then I did see Roman is now going to have his match with Drew McIntyre.
Yeah,
Where
I mean,
before all the spotlight was on Roman coming back, this is kind of taken away from, okay, Roman's got a match now. You don't hear all the backlash that you were hearing once he came back because you're now more focused on the three women and the Kofi Bryan situation.
well, that's the point we're trying to make is that the women still aren't. It's essentially this feud with the women is worthless because they're more focused on the Kofi Kingston feud.
That's because they feel like they have to build it up more for Mania because they shoehorned it in late, and I think it's honestly because they started listening, or they tried to listen to the crowd reaction with that one.
It is what happened at Elimination Chamber. It actually started at the Monday before or Tuesday before Elimination Chamber.
Right. When Ali got Mustafa Ali got hurt and they threw Kofi into that mix, that's where I guess his momentum started because of him being thrown into that just at like last minute, the 11th hour.
And with
But that's
what
where
he
it becomes.
did. And with
That's
what
where
he
it
did.
becomes a that's where it becomes like a creative problem because you can both do the Kofi Kingston and Daniel Bryan storyline and still focus on the women's match properly. They can only seemingly do one thing creatively at one time.
Right.
Right, and that's ultimately my question. Is like they have totally just forgotten about the women. They built the story. The story's done. Now we're just sitting around twiddling our thumbs. And I said this a couple of weeks ago. They're sitting around. Now we can sit around, twiddle our thumbs, and wait. Now they threw a curveball in there with what they did on Tuesday. Now we're talking about it again. However, I still think they blew their wad too early.
Yep.
Yeah, the feud definitely lost momentum, which is a problem going into the biggest event of the year.
And they tried getting it back with what they did on Tuesday, which ultimately pissed a lot of people off.
Right. And God forbid between now and Mania that Charlotte, Becky, or Ronda get hurt at a house show or injured or a freak accident occurs like with the Nia punch to the face. They're screwed then. Because they built this all up, and that's the other problem when we've discussed it too. They just focus their storylines around certain individuals, and everybody else kind of sits in the wings, and then they're brought up when they're needed then. It's not like they're working their storylines too at the same time. They were trying to do it with Mandy Rose and Asuka, and you've seen that failed with how bad that was at Elimination Chamber with
Right.
Mandy and Asuka, and nobody wanted to see that again, which I know that's what the plan was, and that ultimately was the decision with pulling that fatal four-way and doing what they did. But it's still centering on those three women, and it's the similar situation like with the Shield. When Roman came back, they all started that focusing back on the Shield. We're going to push the Shield. We're going to give this match at Elimination Chamber, and then of course, that disbanded, and now the focus is, okay, Roman now has a match. Seth's in his match. Dean's not even booked for Mania due to him leaving. So it's now, you've got the focus off of Roman. You've already had the Seth and Brock Lesnar since Rumble. So that's a given. And it was focused on the women, focus on the Kofi Bryan. Poor Asuka was left out there in the wind, but nobody else even was pushed till you had the Lashley Finn situation. And then, of course, then that started with, okay, now we're going to get that match. Then we had the Shane and Miz. We knew what was happening with that storyline. We knew we were getting that. Then, of course, they threw in the Batista and Triple H. But the storylines just seem to be like done on a week to week. It's not something that's thought and planned out. Like we have said, they need to do this stuff using multiple different people down the road. I mean, you can't just 1 week write it this way, people get pissed off, or people throw a fit on Twitter, and then, okay, well, we're going to rewrite it this way now, or we're going to change it to this now. And that's what it's boiling down to is they're writing week to week. It seems like,
They've
or
been-
every 2 weeks.
Ronnie, they've been doing that for years now. They've been writing week to week for years. It
Yeah, but
hasn't
this is
changed.
really showing.
Of course it is.
How they've done
It's because everything is so scripted. It's because of the writers. Now, I will say this, they're so saturated with fucking talent that they have to write for everybody. They have so much fucking talent on the main roster, and I'm saying main roster because still they don't consider NXT part of the main roster. You can't tell me that they do. Because Triple H, Paul Levesque actually had a damn press conference, and he's mentioned that fucking 2 words, call-ups. When we call up people from NXT, Vince don't care about their storylines that they were doing down in NXT. And again, do I agree with it? No. But it's Vince McMahon's company. We can't tell him what he can and can't fucking do.
Right, he
JP,
can do what he wants anyway.
what I would say with NXT is I don't care if they don't have to continue the storylines from NXT, but one thing they really shouldn't do is attempt a change in character.
No,
Like
I
they do
agree
it
with
all
you.
the time.
I
They
agree
do the
with you.
flip from heel to face for some unknown reason, and all the work this person put in the last year on NXT to build a character they're familiar with, who they're used to acting as, who has the best chance of getting over, now is gone, replaced with the same husk, the same person, the same music, but a completely different character. And now the people that were loyal in NXT don't recognize them on the main roster, and the wrestler has to fucking change everything that they've been working towards and try to get over all over again.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you at one iota. I'm just saying what Triple H said in his press conference. When they call people up, they do not, Vince does not, or creative or whoever does not care about storylines that they had down in NXT. Not saying they're changing their character. Now they changed Bobby Roode, which was a dumb fucking move. And the only reason they changed him was because his music was babyface.
Well, they half the time change characters from NXT when the person is clearly face or heel. Like you look at Ricochet and Aleister Black, and they're Ricochet is a face, but he's not a guy that you want to even hear speak on the mic anyway. And Aleister Black, God knows what he actually is.
Even the Ciampa Gargano. I mean, down there they were feuding. They were building towards the NXT takeover match where you were going to get Ciampa and Gargano. Of course, unfortunately, Ciampa's out with an injury. But they put them together as DIY, which kind of everything that they had going on in NXT to build towards the takeover. It's like, okay, well, we're going to team you together for this Dusty Rhodes Classic. So it's just like, yeah, right there's an example that Vince McMahon didn't care what was going on in NXT, which was building towards the pay-per-view. We're going to put you guys together for this Dusty Rhodes Classic.
Well, Ronnie, let me ask you a question though. Like, because I always thought the best success Ciampa and Gargano had moving to the main roster would be as a tag team. Regardless of what they've done individually, just when you look at the type of wrestler that Vince McMahon covets, I think they would have best success as a tag team, and kind of you could sprinkle in the past, and they could eventually go and feud each other on the main roster to finally close it out. Maybe a year after they've joined, but I think at least their best success is as a tag team moving up.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, when they were DIY, I mean, they did have really good matches down there, but when they started doing it now, bringing them up, when we knew TakeOver was coming up, that they were going to have Gargano and Ciampa fighting again with the belt, it did make sense to pair them up for the Dusty Rhodes Classic, just to have them feud at TakeOver for the belt.
Well, I feel like if they did that and they feud at TakeOver, okay. Um, uh, I think their takeover match would have ended in a way where like amicably, so that they could move into the main roster as a tag team. Like they've both been on both sides of the coin for the most part. Yes, Ciampa's the more obvious heel, but if it ends in like more of a sign of respect, and I think the fans would get behind that. If that match ended in like a handshake, because of the 3 years they've been going at each other, and then they moved as like a tag team, knowing that they know each other more than anybody else, and they can tell, you know, I don't know. I still think they could have moved up as a tag team if they ran with the NXT takeover storyline before the injury.
I agree. Cannot disagree. I I'm not a fan of what they're doing with Aleister Black and Ricochet right now. Not saying that they aren't doing them good story wise. They're overkill.
Yeah, I was going to say
They
doing
won the Dusty Rhodes Classic. They're getting a tag team title shot at NXT Takeover. Then they won on Raw. Now they're getting a Raw tag team title shot at WrestleMania. That to me is overkill. They're trying to showcase them to way too hard. I get them wanting them to get them over. They were over before they even got to the main roster. Everybody knows who Ricochet is if you're a fan of wrestling. What do you guys think about that? Having them, I don't know. I hope I'm not spoiling anything for anybody, but they ultimately had Ricochet and Aleister Black. It's pretty. I get it. I'm not saying it is. It's Ricochet and Aleister Black Mania, to me.
Yeah, well, that's been since they started this with them. It was just like every week they were on Raw, they were on SmackDown, they were on NXT. And I know they were doing it for the Dusty Rhodes Classic, but like you said, it was overkill. And it was just like we were getting so tired of seeing them. And then, of course, Black went on his honeymoon. So we knew that week with him not there, but then they featured Ricochet in a singles.
Right.
And it's just like, it's also a recipe for you're taking the chance of, I know you're trying to get exposure for this individual, but you're also risking injury and exhaustion with this individual too, that you may end up not having him when you need to use him.
Right. And I this is why, like, I love the idea of floating people between brands, like moving people from SmackDown back to NXT, but not having them on both. Or all three, yeah.
It's just too much.
It's too much, and it's gonna like it's obviously overworking the talent because those guys are gonna give everything on Friday and then have to give everything again on Sunday.
Yep.
But watch that match on Sunday be a couple high spots and that's it.
Yep, I can see it. Why Society?
With using them like that, they're also taking away from the talent that's on there that's not being utilized. It was like, okay, you already featured him on Raw, or both of them on Raw. Let's focus on someone else for SmackDown. But no, they put Black and Ricochet on SmackDown again the same week. And then, of course, then they were on NXT that Wednesday. And I know that stuff was taped prior to the Raw and SmackDown. But it's just, like you said, it's overkill. And they're having to do this with the women, too. I mean, you're already seeing Ronda, Becky, and Charlotte, because of the storyline, they're floating between the two brands. And with the way the roster is, that's how the women need to be, because there's not enough women on any of the rosters. I mean, you got Sasha and Bayley on NXT, you got Sasha and Bayley on Raw, you got Sasha and Bayley showing up on SmackDown.
Well, they kind of have to. They have the women's tag team titles.
Yes, but
they kind of have to.
The women's division, there's just not enough storylines going around for any of the women, and everybody else is. And like I told you, that one tweet from Liv Morgan, they were back there playing Nerf air gun because
Liv Morgan can play Nerf air gun all she wants. So can fucking the Iconics, for all I fucking care. I can't fucking stand them too. But I get it. But the women, they're a different story because they only have one tag team title, so they kind of have to fucking float.
They're gonna have to.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, in the ultimate the words of the Undertaker, gonna have to. But
Ultimate Warrior.
but that being said, what about Johnny? What about you?
I just think it's all one giant clusterfuck, to be honest with you.
It is.
Like in all seriousness, I just do not understand. Like, I get what everybody's saying about the whole Kofi thing, but again, I still kind of go with what I said last night. It could have failed. It could have fallen on its face. I get that. But I almost rather of them played that storyline of they had already set up that Xavier Woods and Big E were talking about quitting. And I think it would have made a much more impactful moment if they had played that up just a little bit more. They actually went with, they took a chance and did it.
Right.
And have people, the baby faces that were coming out, have them come out and actually quit and kind of do the force fences hand kind of thing. I think you would have got a much stronger reaction out of it. Now, whether it would have worked or not is kind of pointless to speculate on because it didn't happen.
Right.
But I think it would have. I seriously think in that instance, that kind of storyline would have worked.
I think it would have, but I still think we would have gotten, well, you're going to do a gauntlet match. That's the only way Kofi Kingston gets into Mania.
I do understand what I do understand what you're saying on that. I do completely understand. I just wish there was a little bit more because effectively.
Agreed.
Effectively, I realistically think that the Big E and Xavier Woods gauntlet match should have never happened to begin with because you effectively made Kofi look weak.
Yeah, I can see it.
I get what people were telling me. Well, he technically won the gauntlet match the week before. Yes, he did, and Vince screwed him. But by having Big E and Xavier Woods be the reason why he's going to WrestleMania, it kind of diminishes Kofi's character of he's been doing it for 11 years and he's finally got there on his own merit.
Right.
And I just think they could have done a lot more of a different deal. And for the love of God, I feel sorry for the women of SmackDown Live. I really do. I legitimately feel sorry for them because they are the most buried part of the talent in the entire company. You might as well, I'm dead serious, you might as well not have a SmackDown women's division. And I'm dead serious about that. I seriously think you shouldn't even have a women's division on SmackDown.
Well, I'm thinking if they do what we're thinking, I'm thinking that they are doing, I'm hoping that they fucking do on Sunday, that there will be no Raw women's division. There will be no SmackDown women's division. They'll all be one division. It'll just be called the women's division.
I really, really hope that's the case.
Because there's not, look, and it all boils down to this. I said it. I don't know how many fucking months ago when Bob had said they're doing a women's tag team. I said if they do that, they are fucking themselves right in the fucking ass. They are going to book themselves into a fucking corner, which, look, what they fucking did, they booked themselves into a fucking corner by fucking making a women's tag team division. Look at where we are. We don't have enough fucking women in the fucking main roster, and yes, I'm still saying main roster, to have a damn tag team division. They don't have enough women to have two. Ultimately, what you're doing, and it doesn't make any fucking sense, to have two singles titles unless you make one of those titles a mid-card title. because it makes it easier for somebody to go after a singles title than it is a tag team title. Makes
Yep.
no fucking sense. You're
Well, then
ultimately
you-
burying the singles title by having more than one.
So then if you do that with the main roster, why don't they do that then and combine with the NXT? Because you got the NXT UK and then you got the NXT women's. So between those two, there's not even enough.
WWE NXT UK shouldn't even exist in my mind.
I agree.
Because they don't like I
There's not
understand
enough
they're trying to spread out too fast that it thins it out too much, especially when it comes to the women's division. I honestly think when it comes to the women's division on the main roster, I believe they have enough talent to do one women's championship, a tag team championship, and like a mid card for the women, especially if they bring up a couple from NXT.
Right.
But they
Right.
can't.
Have
They
it
got to get rid of
similar
the
to, like, the
brand
men's-
split.
You have it similar to like the men's, where you have the Intercontinental, you have the main title, you have the tag team title.
Mhm.
But even with the UK and the NXT women's, you got the same. You got Pete Dunne as the men's NXT, and then you got the men's title on NXT. Then you also have the ones on the main roster. So it's like there's all these titles, but then when you've got everybody split up the way they do, that's the problem. It's just
Well,
that there's not enough on this roster, there's not enough in this roster. And if you have the one, have that champion do the rotating.
Imagine how stacked NXT would be if they didn't have NXT UK and it was all just NXT, and they had shows in the UK or something like that. Because then it wouldn't hurt them when they call up guys like Ricochet and Aleister Black. They still have Pete Dunne. They still have Tyler Bate. And in all honesty, the NXT UK men's portion, it's not that deep in terms of legitimate talent.
I agree. Bobbit, what about you? I know you want to. You've been sitting there patiently. What about you, brother?
This whole thing is just one giant clusterfuck. Ever since they introduced those damn tag team titles, and I think we should just have one women's division, and I think Alexa Bliss should be the overall champion.
Shut the fuck up. I'm not even talking to you anymore.
Well, if that's the case, then I'm saying Sarah Logan.
No, fuck both of you. Anyway, Trek, is there anything else you got to add about that or no?
It's a mess. I
wasn't-
mean, this
Hold on, Trek. Hold on. Bobbit, is
tag
there
team
anything-
title was
Trek, hold on. Bobbit, do you have
Oh, sorry.
anything else?
No, that's all I had to say, really.
Okay, go ahead, Trek.
it's one big mess. It's like that they wanted these women's tag team titles for like what 3 years in a row. Well, all we kept hearing is they're bringing them back, they're bringing them back, they're bringing them back, and now it's gonna be one big clusterfuck at WrestleMania. It's gonna be like if Sasha Bailey lose to Nia and Tamina, it's gonna be like they just won them a month and a half ago. It's gonna be one big mess. And then we got Nia and Tamina carrying them. And it's like who's supposed to beat them?
Mhm.
And then, like you guys said, not NXT UK is too much. They should have just kept. They could have had the NXT UK title on NXT. They didn't have to have their own show,
Right.
and they could have had the women fight for that title on NXT women's title on the NXT. But they have to expand so much. It's like going too far too fast, and it's backing up on them already.
Well, one thing, Trek, if they added the NXT UK title as a regular title on just NXT, a 1 hour show with that many titles now is tough. Like I would prefer they do 1.5 hours on NXT because I don't see why they couldn't. It's fucking they can do whatever they want. It's pre-recorded, right?
Yes.
That's a
It
good
is.
point, man. That's why I was thinking. We were joking around the other night. We were saying take the third hour from Raw, give half to SmackDown and half to NXT. But if you guys say NXT gets extra half an hour, that's actually not a bad idea. Give them an extra half an hour. Let them roll with the NXT UK title, and they don't have to have the NXT UK title on every episode. I mean, look at some of the people aren't on every episode. Some of them are on every other or every third episode, and it's like. But they're rushing too much. They're cramming it down our throats, and then they wonder why they get burnout and people quitting left and right. They did
Well-
that guy from the not the revival, the TK6, whatever it was, the mighty TM61. He quit.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
He's in New Japan now.
He's outright. He asked for his outright release.
Yeah, he's over in New Japan.
He's in New Japan now.
Here's the fucked up thing with the main roster. It's like the women need the brand split to end, and the men they're way too deep on male talent
Yep,
for
they
the
need
brand
to
split
release
to
some
end.
of them. They need to
Yeah.
release some of their male talent. Now, ultimately, Bob, what about Kofi Kingston? Do you like how Kofi Kingston's going, or do you not like how the Kofi Kingston story's going? Now, what I mean by that, do you think it was overkill to have 2 gauntlet matches, one right after the other? Do you think they could have done
Yes.
something else with the women's division? Yes or no?
I think the 2 gauntlet matches was overkill for Kofi. And they just need to unify the women's division, honestly, and have Alexis champion.
Oh my God, shut up. Trek, what about you with Kofi Kingston? You didn't really elaborate on that.
I like Kofi, and I like that he's getting a shot, but it's just like you guys said, 2 gauntlet matches is too much. It's just overkill. And then we knew it's predictable. We knew at the end of the first one who was gonna come out, Daniel Bryan. So it's like, what was the point of even doing it if he's gonna get screwed again? And then they come up with the tag team one. It's like, yeah, it was good. I mean, I like what they did with the Usos and stuff, and that the Usos showed respect and stuff. But it's 2 gauntlet matches 2 weeks ago. It's just too much.
I agree. And we also have, and you heard her say he's in New Japan now, which is Gina. Now, before we move on, because I know everybody wants to talk about it, we haven't really talked a little bit. We teased it. We haven't talked about it. What about you, Gina? About what you've heard us discussing as far as the women's division? No, don't give away what we're going to talk about. And you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But what do you think about? Also, give us your idea on the Kofi Kingston thing. Do you think it was too much? Do you think it was overkill with the gauntlet match that they did? I liked that. Now, before anybody sits here and says, "Well, JP hated it," no, I liked what they did. I just wish they would have not done a gauntlet match.
I think that with the Kofi Kingston thing, they could have done a different match other than a gauntlet match. They could have made it basically falls count anywhere or whatever. There's so many different stipulations and matches that they could have done instead of the gauntlet match. And actually, that was actually the 3rd gauntlet match, if I'm correct, because you got to count the initial one that Kofi Kingston was initially eliminated from.
Oh yeah, well that was to get into Elimination Chamber, yes.
Yeah, but I mean I count that one as well because that led to the storyline.
Yes.
So there's 2 solid gauntlet matches, one of which of course Kofi wasn't involved in. It was Biggie and Xavier Woods, but either way around, too many gauntlet matches. Gauntlet matches are great, but when you use them too much, they start to lose their luster.
Well, here's I said I don't know if you heard me, but I said what about a handicap tag team match?
Oh yeah, I mean,
which they had the 3 tag teams out there or whatever, and they had to take on. That's what they had to do, and then maybe had Daniel Bryan and Eric Rowan come out and have to face them. They could have saved, instead of the last 45 minutes or whatever of SmackDown. And what we're going to get into is what happened at fucking SmackDown at the beginning of the show. They could have built the women's division on SmackDown where Asuka could have. And we're going to go right into it. Might as well get to it because it's there. Instead of what happened. But here's the thing. What we've been talking about, and I'm going to get Gina's thoughts on this real quick. What about the unifying of the women's division? Now, I know you've heard us say that NXT this, NXT that. Triple H had his press conference, and they're still calling them call-ups. They are not making NXT part of the main roster.
Which I think is it's a bad move. NXT it has its own brand. There's no reason why it shouldn't be part of those main roster shows, especially since NXT is overall the favorite. It's the favorite brand of anything. But I think that they might be a little bit hesitant to make it part of that mainline stream because maybe Triple H doesn't want it to be tainted the way that Raw and SmackDown has, if that makes sense. Because NXT is such a unique and original thing in itself that if you bring it up and you make it part of the main roster, it could very much, again, like Kofi Kingston's gauntlet matches, it could lose its luster and lose its appeal. As far as the women, unifying the SmackDown and the Raw titles, I think is a very, very good idea. I know I had originally, before I heard all these like rumors or whatever of what they were planning on doing, which does not make fucking sense to me at all.
We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it.
Yeah, but like I know I had brought up, I thought that it would be a good idea to make it a fatal four-way and bring Asuka into that match, the final match of Mania. Because if you think about it, Asuka's a huge draw. Like that's going to bring in how many Japanese fans? Mm-hmm. But I guess they're not doing that. So I don't know. I don't know what to think at this point.
Wait, if they added Asuka if they did a fatal four-way, imagine if they did a fatal four-way elimination match and added Asuka to it. They never do elimination matches anymore.
Well, see, my idea was if they added Asuka to the match and made it a fatal four-way, then Asuka, being pissed that Charlotte took her title, would immediately go after Charlotte, which would then leave Becky and Ronda the way that people wanted it to begin with. I'm sorry?
Well, this is the thing, though. And adding Asuka into the match would solve nothing. I hate to say it, but it solves nothing.
I disagree.
It makes it worse because
I don't think so. I'm sorry. Explain. Go ahead.
Because here's the thing. If they unify the titles, guess what? Your four horsewoman woman storyline does not stack up. Of them having all the titles, it doesn't stack up. So you're lost on that front. If they don't unify the titles, you've effectively killed off the SmackDown Live's title. It makes no sense to have that title in a match where it's not defended. So either way you look at it, it's going to end badly because it's not going to be the storyline that we want if they unify the title, and the SD title is dead. It's pointless.
Here's the thing: it would not be dead if they unified it. If Ronda was in fact walked out the champion, if Ronda walks out the unified champion, then it does not kill off either title. It actually helps the storyline. It doesn't kill the storyline. It puts the storyline to rest with the fact that Ronda is the baddest woman on planet.
Agreed.
Okay, but then there's no point of having Asuka in the match then.
The reason why I said bring Asuka into the match is just so that people stop fucking bitching. Because over this past week, I have gotten so fucking sick and tired of listening to people bitch. Excuse me while I rant for a second. People are bitching nonstop about everything that this company does. You want Asuka, okay? Or you wanted Becky and Charlotte, or Becky and Ronda. They gave it to you. Okay, then they tried to twist the storyline a little bit. Then they added Charlotte, and everybody went up into a fucking uproar, even though it's going to be a great match. Now they do what they did with Charlotte, which I don't agree with. We'll talk about that, like JP said. But Asuka, being the beloved Asuka, like she has been for fucking since she got called up to the main roster, everybody puts Asuka on a pedestal. But now she's squashed. Whereas if you put her in that match and make it a fatal four-way, she's in the main event of WrestleMania.
Well, the problem.
So I don't see how that would be a negative for Asuka.
Well, the problem is that Charlotte should have never been in this match to begin with.
Oh, I don't think that anybody's disagreeing with you there, Johnny. Like I completely agree. But you can't deny the fact that Charlotte getting added to the match added that much more luster.
I disagree. I don't think it did. I do not think it did. If anything, it exacerbated the problem. It made it worse. Because this is why. Because if you look at what happened before SmackDown went on the air, there was actually, keep in mind, I think they should have done this at Fastlane, have a number one contenders match for the SmackDown title. The thing is, the only, I said it last night, the only reason that Charlotte got that title is because of what was going on beforehand. Nobody was talking about Charlotte being in this match, and which is why I stand by what I said, that her being in this match was pointless, because before she won the title, nobody was talking about her. Nobody, and whether it was justified or not, we can have a discussion about that. But the point is, they were not talking about Charlotte. They were talking about Becky and Ronda, and that's all the fans gave a shit about. They did not give a shit about Charlotte. The only reason why we're even having this discussion about whether or not they're going to unify the titles or the four horsewoman thing is because of the fact that they had to put the title on Charlotte, because otherwise the argument that she did not belong in the match was an accurate argument. There was no reason for her to be in the match.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, but I don't have a problem with, like, okay, if Charlotte's the SmackDown champion, let's say Becky wins the Raw championship, which I'm beginning to believe is what's going to happen, because they're set, like you said, they're setting up for four horsewomen. I don't have a problem with that, because here's the thing: everybody is up in arms about this, but if you think about it, the ending WrestleMania on that note sets up SummerSlam so great. And that's long-term booking. That is what everybody has been complaining that WWE has been lacking.
I get what you're saying. I don't, because this is my thing. I don't give a shit if they do the four horsewomen. And what I mean is, it's not that I don't care that they're doing it. It's just, okay, they're doing it. That's great. Fine, whatever. But still, let's say that outcome does happen, and Becky wins the Raw title, and Charlotte has a SmackDown title, and all the four horsewomen have titles. Guess what? That SmackDown title doesn't mean a hill of beans. It's a paperweight. And that's what I'm pissed off about, is that they have effectively, and my thought process is, I'd rather them unify the titles. My only gripe about of them unifying the titles is that there is no story to it. When you really think about it, you want to talk about women's evolution, that is a slap in the face to me, to the women, because guess what? When they unified the titles with Cena and Orton, they built that shit up. They made that to be one of the biggest deals in the company. And you mean to tell me you're going to do it as a cliff note to fix a crap app storyline that you've done? To me, well, I would be very upset about that.
Well, I think that the women in general have a lot to be upset about to begin with. Because, okay, first of all, you have Evolution, and now they're not doing the second Evolution. And I'm sorry, you guys, who was it that shared the Trinity Fatu?
I did.
Okay, yep. That right there, what she said, you can tell that the women are angry because there's no Evolution. The SmackDown title is pretty much dead. Now you got the Battle Royale thing going on. It's the women's division. It's great athletic wise, but it's horrible as far as management wise goes.
Well, and there's two things. Okay, why I get why people are excited about the four horsewomen, but I'm trying to get people to understand why this is such a bad idea if they do all the titles, is because one, again, the SD title will mean absolutely nothing, because it's basically they just put it on Charlotte to put it on her, to give her a reason to be in the match. That doesn't help the championship. That degrades the championship.
If they don't unify, it's a huge misstep.
And then number two, here's the other thing that everybody keeps on forgetting about. Oh, okay. I get that people want to build it to SummerSlam with the four horsewomen stuff, but you mean to tell me in 6 months' time that the the two girls that every time I hear about them, that they're getting better or they're complete shit in the ring. You mean to tell me that that's going to be a good match if you sit there and push that to SummerSlam?
Well, that would be my only fear about it, because just from oh God, I can't talk. Just from Royal Rumble to WrestleMania, the Becky storyline has been squashed. And okay, I don't think that the Becky and Ronda storyline would have been squashed quite the way it was if it was not for the fans. I'm sorry, guys, but fans, we get irate and we get way too invested into it. And I understand, like, you're passionate about wrestling and everything, but you have to let them work the storylines. You can't be going on Twitter saying, "Oh, fuck WWE" every 5 minutes when they don't do something that you don't like, because that's when we end up with twisted storylines like what we have now. The whole reason why they had Charlotte come into the match to begin with, I believe, was because the fans were irate, and they put them in a corner to where they had no choice but to put it on Becky. At least bringing Charlotte in, it added a twist to it. And they had to twist this fucking storyline so much in order to keep it going, because of the Twitter involvement from both Ronnie and Becky. Like, if they're going to have long-term storyline building like this, Twitter should be off limits.
I agree.
That's just my opinion.
Well,
I've said it. Social media is killing WWE right now.
Well, and see, here's the thing. The thing that, and I think JP will back me up on this, because we even talked about this last night. Realistically, Becky Lynch should not be it should. This is the thing. That main event and should have been a one-on-one match from the start, and Becky Lynch should not have been the one to be originally in the main event. It should have been Charlotte.
I agree. Well, see, ultimately, and correct me if I'm wrong, we had been hearing all along, ever since Ronda Rousey joined WWE, which was Royal Rumble of last year, that, oh my God, they're going to do Charlotte versus Ronda at WrestleMania 35. So ultimately what I'm saying is WrestleMania 35 was supposed to be Charlotte versus Ronda Rousey. That being said, what happened with Becky was WWE, Becky got over, and there was no way WWE could shut it down. So they ultimately put her in that match. Now, what upset me, and we all sat here in the live reaction to Royal Rumble, not the Nia Jax thing aside, I think I said it. They ultimately, and in a way, they did what they did with Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 30, or Royal Rumble 33, or 2017, whichever one that was. Right. Where he lost to Kevin Owens. Then they threw him in. He came out number 30 at the Royal Rumble. He didn't win. The only difference is Becky won, which makes it even worse. Becky tapped out to Asuka earlier on in the night. Clean. In my opinion, Becky should not have been in the Royal Rumble.
No.
I get why they did it, because Lana was hurt, and I don't know if she really was hurt, because
she was not really hurt.
Okay.
She was freaking posing for modeling pictures.
That's the way that they got Becky Lynch into the fucking match. That's how they got her to win the Royal Rumble.
You know, I was okay with that, though, because everybody's bitching that WWE doesn't listen. That proved to me that they were listening. Like, they're trying. That's why I'm getting a little agitated that people are so, like, I've seen people shitting on WrestleMania before WrestleMania is even fucking being aired. Like, I'm like, just take a minute and fucking just watch the damn show before you shit on it. Because guess what, guys? If you go into something thinking that it's going to be shit, all you're going to see is shit. You're not going to see any positives. Yeah, so like that, they are, yes, they may be doing things that we don't like, but let's face it, they have to do things that we don't like because that's what gets the heels over.
It's true.
If they did everything that we'd have a company full of baby.
Well,
that's all that there is to it.
What storyline was it? If they ultimately continue to give us everything, like I said it, if I can't remember what it was, but if they give us this and people bitch about it, oh, which one was it? Oh, the Baron Corbin Kurt Angle thing. I said, don't change the match. Don't change it. Because if you change it, then people are the fans who are booing this, and I agree, it's not the match everybody wants. Everybody wants Kurt Angle versus John Cena. It makes sense. But if you don't do that, and they boo and boo and boo, and then that like, fuck it, we're just going to give John Cena pull Baron Corbin, then the fans are going to be like, oh, all we have to do is continue to boo and show our displeasure on Twitter or social media or whatever, and they'll give us what we want. So ultimately, fire every fucking goddamn writer, fire every producer that you have, and fucking let the fans book it from then on out. I bet you the show becomes complete shit if you let the fans start booking
sure, 100%.
Because they don't know what the fuck they're doing.
And that's where WWE put their foot in their mouth, because they said that the fans were going to be the authority, and the fans are taking advantage of that. The fans are bitching.
That's what I'm saying.
Right, and that's exactly, I mean, when they made that statement, and they're doing it to an extent, but then they're changing it back to the way they want to do things. So they're giving it to you, but then they're taking it away in the same week or within the next show. So it's like, okay, we're going to give you what you want, but then next week, oh, we're going to do it our way.
Right.
And that's what happened.
Nothing. I was kind of going to touch on what Ronnie just said. Like, they're satisfying two birds at once with one stone.
They're trying.
Whoa, I want to see that.
But you got to also realize too, this has been going on since they've been pushing this women's agenda. We got the Evolution pay-per-view. We got first ever this, first ever that. Now we're getting first ever WrestleMania main event. And it's basically, I mean, we all know Charlotte was not going to be left out of a main event at WrestleMania with the women's division. And with pushing the Becky and Ronda, you knew Ronda was going to be in it. And that's what it is. It's just they keep saying first ever this is the first time for women. And you also got to remember, too, in May, they're going to Saudi. The women aren't going again. So this was perfect timing. We're going to give you the first ever main event at WrestleMania, but we're going to Saudi in May, which is part of that deal.
Go ahead, Gene.
But you know what's shitty about that is that, okay, you're going to give the women the first ever women's main event in WrestleMania, but you're also taking away Evolution, which, I mean, don't get me wrong, last year's Evolution fucking blew ass, but I'm just saying, like, you give them something, but then you take something away.
Right.
Why are they not doing another Evolution? Did it not get the views?
I don't think that it made the ratings that they were hoping.
When something doesn't work and Vince doesn't make or the board doesn't think that they make enough money on it, they cut it.
But then again, they didn't build to Evolution very well either.
Also, look when it happened.
That's true.
Yeah, you would have thought that with it being the first I'm going to say WWE women's pay-per-view, because an all women's pay-per-view has been done before in other companies, but you would think that they would have had months of planning going into the storylines and stuff heading into Evolution, and I think the only one that they really did was Charlotte versus Becky.
Yep. Yes, that was their main storyline. So they built the storyline on that because you knew that Nikki Bella wasn't going to last that long in the ring with Ronda Rousey. So,
right.
But yeah.
Real quick, JP, I do have some news regarding WWE, if I can.
Go ahead.
Today, actually, Vince McMahon sold $272 million worth of stocks for WWE. Did you know that? Okay, it's to fund XFL. So I'm wondering why he's taking his WWE stocks and selling them in order to fund XFL.
The exact same thing he said he wouldn't do?
He said he was going to do that. He didn't. He said he wasn't going to run it. He said he was going to fund it.
Right.
He said it wasn't going to have any impact on WWE or something, didn't he?
No, not impact. Not impact on Raw or SmackDown.
But
day-to-day, all he said in that press conference was his day-to-day operations were going to stay the same, which means he's still going to be booking, or he's going to be the final say-so when it comes to the shows. He's only putting money into the XFL. He's not going to be running it, so to speak.
Right.
Oliver Luck is the commissioner of the XFL. He's the one that's going to run it.
I just thought it was weird that he would take stocks out of a company, that it's literally his baby, but I get it because the money has to come from somewhere, but in the same sense, in the state that the WWE is in right now, I don't know if that was a good move.
For him?
For him, for the company.
Nah, it ain't gonna hurt him.
Well,
it hasn't hurt my stocks. Mine, I got my statement, and the stock is still up there. It's not as high as it was. It was like at 93, 94, and then it dropped down to like 87.
Just wait till XFL fails.
Look at Ronnie. She's all professional over there with her stock.
Well, it's actually Austin, so I got it when it was a baby.
Ultimately, it's not going to hurt Vince at all. That's money-wise. It's not going to do anything to hurt him. It's his money. It's different money. It's not money that comes from the shows and shit. It's his money.
Gotcha.
So he just sold some of his stocks. So who he sold them to? I don't know.
But my question with that is $272 million worth of stocks. That's a pretty large chunk of stocks.
Yeah, but that's not even close to what he owns, though.
No, that's not what I'm saying. But my question.
I know.
My question would be the person who bought the stocks, since it's so much, okay, let's say it's one person, because I don't know if he sold them to one person, if it was multiple people. But if it's one person, does that give them a little bit of an edge as to what's going on in the company because it is so much money?
Definitely.
Majority owner.
But still, you own $272 million of WWE stock. You're on the board in some way.
He probably sold to multiple people so that he could.
That's what I think.
Majority owner.
Yeah, that was my biggest question about it because obviously Vince is still going to be majority owner.
He ain't gonna give shit up. I tell you that right. No, he ain't gonna give nothing up. Not until the day he dies.
Right. You didn't have him dropping stock. You didn't have Kevin Dunn dropping stock. You didn't have the major shareholders dropping stock. It was just him.
Yeah, that was just my main question though about it because I don't really, I haven't studied stocks and shit since high school, so I wasn't really sure how.
You studied stocks in high school?
I did too.
Of the control of the company with it being that much, but anyways,
I had to learn it in marketing.
Oh yeah, I haven't had to study stocks. I studied stocks was senior year in economics. So.
What'd you say, Johnny? Go ahead.
Nothing.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry.
And then you had the news too with Linda McMahon. She's dropping out of that with Trump today.
The small business.
Let's not read into that now. She's just stepping away from.
Yeah, she's stepping away from it. I wasn't trying to read into anything.
No, I know. I mean, and I don't give a fuck who John Cena's fucking dating either. All right, I'm not gonna fucking talk about that. Fucking.
Yo, who's he dating? I want to know and care.
The top story on TMZ today.
I want to know and care so much.
I saw with Becky. They were interviewing Becky in the airport, and they were asking her about Gronk.
Oh my God, no! There's a huge rumor going on now that because Conor McGregor quit MMA, that him and Becky are suddenly dating, and I'm like, Conor McGregor's married, you fucking stupid idiot.
People are dumb. All right, so let's get into it. So Tuesday, Charlotte beats Asuka for the title. And we kind of already hit on it. We've kind of talked about it. My question is, and I know this is Bobbitt's show, but I'm gonna ask him first and let him talk about it because Asuka is his favorite superstar. Well, I don't know now. Fucking Alexa Bliss.
Fucking Alexa Bliss. I'm just gonna say on your own channel that I'm gonna stab you pretty soon if you don't stop with the Alexa Bliss shit.
So, Bobbitt, and this is a question for everybody. The way that do you think they are unifying the women's title?
If they don't, it's a misstep.
And we're gonna talk about, and I'm gonna let Johnny elaborate on what some of the fucking shit that I heard, which I don't fucking believe for one fucking minute. Not saying that you're the one that's reporting it, Johnny. It's stuff you've heard. But I want to get everybody's thoughts on what they think. In fact, I'm gonna let Johnny talk about what there is out there, and then Bobbitt, I want you to tell me what you think they should do with the women's division moving forward after WrestleMania. Go ahead, Johnny.
Honestly, with the way that this shit has been going down, and I don't want to believe that this is even a possibility, but I swear to God, this whole shit has made me not even want the women to main event WrestleMania because I'm so sick of this shit. I'm dead serious. I no longer give a shit about the women main evented. I don't want it to happen now because, especially with what they heard today, the ongoing thing is they don't want to unify the women's titles. They want to keep 2 championships on 2 different brands, which again goes back to my point of them effectively killing off the SmackDown title.
Mm-hmm.
But now the way the match is going to be set up, supposedly, we'll find out on Monday exactly, that if Becky pins Ronda, she becomes the Raw Women's Champion. Mm-hmm. If Becky pins Charlotte, she becomes the SmackDown Women's Champion. If Charlotte pins Becky Lynch, her and Ronda retain their titles. If Charlotte pins Ronda, no title change happens.
Which makes
this sounds super confusing.
It is. It makes no sense. Why? I don't know why I don't see that. Me personally, actually, I'm gonna let Bobbitt. Okay, are you done, Johnny? Because I'm gonna let Bobbitt go.
All I know is I am really sick of people at Twitter coming at me, sitting there saying that I'm being fucking sexist about this shit and saying that this fucking sucks when the main thing that I'm pissed about is the fucking storytelling that they've been telling, because it is honestly the most piss poor shit that I've seen in a while. Fuck this women's main event.
I hope to get Brad Maddox as the special guest referee.
I think Johnny needs like some weed or something, because otherwise he couldn't have a heart attack with there, man.
Bobbitt, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Alrighty. So what I think we should do with the women's division is unify the titles. Have have one big roster between both shows of just women. Then you can make some more tag teams for your tag team division, but yet still have women to go after the unified title. Because we all know that fucking title will be between Ronda, Charlotte, and Becky for the next fucking 6 months. Because they're currently not pushing anybody. And it'll give like some of these mid-card women, like, I hate to say this, Mandy Rose is considered a mid-card woman. I'm sorry to all you Mandy Rose fans out there. They're not pushing her. They're not even looking at her right now. Her or Sonya Deville. So they might as well just go for the tag team titles until the fucking main title gets freed up a little bit. Because I see Sasha and Bayley breaking up soon. And I see fucking Sasha going for the main title. I really do.
Okay. Interesting. Bobbitt, you done? You got anything else?
Alexa for champion. That's all.
Oh my God, I'm gonna kill you.
Shut up.
Let me rephrase that. I'm not gonna kill you because then if something does happen to you, I didn't do it.
Trek, what about you?
If that's the plan for the women's title match at WrestleMania, that's the stupidest fucking plan I've ever heard. I'm like, why can't it just? At this point, you might as well just make a unification ladder match for all I care. Because like, she pins this one, she's women's SmackDown champion. She pins this one, she's Raw women's champion. The Raw champion pins her, no titles go up. It's like, what the fuck? It's like, why don't you just have all 3 titles up for grabs, and whoever makes the pin wins both of them for all I care.
All 3 titles. There's only 2.
They're all 2 titles. I keep thinking of like when it was WrestleMania 2000 and like it was Angle versus Guerrero versus Jericho, and they were like 3 pins or something like that. Like, I keep thinking of that, but it's like you just have whoever gets the first pin win both titles. It's like this is just making my head hurt. It's just like we said, our favorite word tonight. It's a clusterfuck.
Anything else?
Do
you think they should unify? I mean, that was the first question that I had.
Yeah, I think there's not enough depth to the women's division. I think you have to unify to get 1 belt.
Okay. I'm in agreement. I have no idea what the fuck Bobbitt went off on a tangent about. All I know is I got Alexa Bliss for title at the end, but I'll have to go back and watch what he said. I'm not gonna do that. But
isn't she like concussed as fuck or something?
Look. Is it a title match? That's the question I'm asking a question. I'm being real here. Is the match not a title match?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So that means the title has to change hands, correct? If somebody's declared a winner, the title has to change hands.
But it's right now a Raw women's title match, right?
Yeah. But you know, the thing is, though, I think that
Other title's not even on the line.
If somebody needs to win, then that means that either Becky or Charlotte are winning.
Either way. If it's a Raw title match, Charlotte wins. She should be both the SmackDown and the Raw Women's Champion.
Yeah, but otherwise, nobody's getting the SmackDown title. If it's a Raw Women's title match, that title's not even on the line.
Yeah. But it ultimately,
So why give it to her?
here's what I see happening Monday is they're saying that they're unifying the titles. It would be smart for them to come out and say they're unifying the titles. Like
They'll just say both titles are on the line.
And whoever wins both titles. And then they just say, well, we're unifying them. And I get what Johnny's saying, and I agree with Johnny. There was no build to it. Randy Orton, John Cena was 2-month build. But this, and I said this in a DM with Johnny, I said that apparently, and this is what WWE and their infinite wisdom, since they didn't fucking build the story the way they should have, they're doing a quick fucking fix, and this is their quick fix. And they're just going to say, well, whoever wins is now the champion of the women's division.
Well, they did 2 things, okay? They killed the SmackDown women's title as soon as they gave it to Charlotte, regardless of what happens.
Yes.
And if it's not unification, then they just buried all the SmackDown singles women's talent. And I'm 100% agreeing with Johnny on that. Eat my ass.
Is that But so I see them unifying the belts. I do agree with Johnny. I do agree with, and I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna play the guy is gonna sit on the fence. I'm the guy, and you know me. I'm usually not the guy that sits on the fence. I'm one side or the other. I'm gonna sit on the fence, and I'm getting sick and tired of trying to figure out what the fuck they're doing. Because I'm being straight up honest with you, and Gina can vouch for this, Johnny can vouch for this. I know Heather can vouch for this because I probably say it in my fucking sleep. Mm-hmm. This feud, and I said it Monday, the way that they have done this match with what they did at the beginning of fucking Raw does not deserve to be the main event. The only reason that it is the main event is because of Ronda fucking Rousey. Not because of what Becky has done, not because of what Charlotte has done. It's what Ronda Rousey. It's all about her name.
And, views expressed on this show do not reflect what Johnny Sinister says. It's not reflection. I'm going to be dead honest. I think the reason why a lot of people are not giving this, not seeing for what it is a clusterfuck and being something that could be very detrimental to the women is because of the simple fact it's the first ever women's match. And you can't criticize that.
Nope. And ultimately, I'm just going to wait and see what fucking happens.
Yeah.
And then I'll shit on it.
I'll say put it on Charlotte, get everybody pissed off, saying, "Oh, she's going towards the 16," and then have her have both, and then make
that to me is the stupidest.
She's already the most. She's already the most decorated woman in wrestling.
Oh yeah,
Here's the stupid fucking part. Okay, this is how. Okay, us wrestling fans, we are very smart, but we are also very stupid when it comes to WWE as well. And this is why I say this, because look at what we're doing right now, okay? We are, some of us are like, yeah, whatever, but most of us are like angry about this. And what is what is Charlotte right now? She's a fucking heel. What is the best way to piss people off and make the heel better? But exactly what they're fucking doing right now.
There's one
but I'm not angry at Charlotte.
I'm all with that statement though. I'm not pissed at Charlotte. I'm not mad at Charlotte.
No, you're mad at WWE. I understand what you're saying, but I'm just saying like with how it's not necessarily us on the call. What I'm saying is like a lot of wrestling fans, they're not mad at the company. They're mad at what's being done with this character or this character, because everybody on this call, we have the ability to separate the character from the person.
Right.
And a lot of people don't have that ability. Like if they hate Charlotte, they hate, what's her real name? Ashley, I think.
Ashley Fleer.
Yeah, they hate her. Like they don't hate the character, they hate her.
And that's what I have been combating all fucking week.
Yep. Nope, I get it.
And people saying that I hate Charlotte and that I don't want to see her. No, I want Charlotte to succeed. I disagree with people that say that she's the best. That it's not because I don't like her. It's just her style of wrestling is not my cup of tea. That's the only reason why I disagree with that.
Right.
And frankly, if they don't like it, they can piss off. I'm entitled to my fucking opinion.
You are correct.
That's with a lot of wrestling fans today, though. Everybody thinks that their opinion is right.
Yep.
And their opinion is the only one that should matter, and everybody should go with their opinion. Nobody wants to respect anybody else's opinions.
Agreed.
Right.
And my thing is that if anything, I had two people that I hold very dear. That I posted a comment about the Asuka thing, and while this was a very dumb about it being a very dumb idea to take the belt off of her, and they were talking about it, and it wasn't even what I was talking about. And it's like, people, fucking get a grip on it. I get it. People don't like Charlotte. That's fine. I don't give a shit if you don't like Charlotte, though. I don't give a shit.
Yeah. It's just,
people take this shit too literal sometimes.
Exactly.
Right.
That's what's killing 90% of the storylines, because people get so invested in it. And I mean, we got invested in it before social media, but I completely agree with JP, not just for the wrestlers themselves, but the fans. Social media is both a godsend to wrestling and an evil empire as well. I mean, there's no greater way to spread hate.
Now, that's not, I'm sorry. Go ahead, finish, Gina.
No, I was done. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm just going to say this, and then I'll move on to the next person. I'm just going to say this, and I'm glad we're talking about this, and we're actually getting together, because a lot of us didn't get together this week and talk about it, really. I mean, we did, but we really didn't. But
confusing.
my thing is, I get invested in a story, and I've said this numerous times. This is why I do not have a favorite wrestler. I always get at, who's your favorite wrestler? A wrestler. That's usually my response. Why do I not like a certain wrestler? For this reason and this reason alone. If I start getting invested in a certain character, it's no fun to me. If they're telling me, I'm invested in the story, which I've kind of lost luster with the story. I'm more invested in the Kofi Kingston story than I am with the Becky Lynch underdog story. But you can't tell me she's an underdog because she's been thrown right in. And I get it. She's had to climb the mountain. She's already been there. But now they're just shoving her down our fucking throat. They're throwing her in every damn thing. It's like, come on.
But this is the problem with a lot of storylines, though, because like what did the fans want? We wanted Becky Lynch. Okay, well now we're getting Becky Lynch, but now we're bitching because Becky Lynch is being stuffed down our face. The same thing happened with Roman.
Yep.
Everybody loved Roman when he first came up, and then all of a sudden they started pushing Roman, and then they pushed him too much to the point where everybody got sick of him, and unfortunately, it's the same thing with Becky.
Well, it's how you ruin a good thing by WWE.
and this is why I'm sorry, Chuck.
Go ahead, Gina.
I was just going to say that this is why, like, back in like the Attitude Era or like the Ruthless Aggression era or even the mid 2000s, or closer to 2010, right after the Ruthless Aggression era kind of started wheezing off. But this is why throughout all that time, nobody really hated. They never turned on a babyface unless the babyface turned themselves.
Right.
But it was because back then they had the ability to be able to push a Stone Cold Steve Austin, but yet not push him too much to where he was being shoved down our face. Because you had people like The Rock and Mick Foley. You had so many different characters that were just all great, and you could push all of them. And now you don't have that, so we're getting stuck with the characters that are being pushed nonstop.
They put all their eggs into one fucking basket, and that's where they stick that They just stick with that basket. They don't, or that egg. They don't move on to something else. Like,
exactly.
And it's not just a problem with the women. It's the whole roster.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's not. That's right.
The thing that made and I've said it many times. What made the Attitude Era work so well is that even the jobber storylines were interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Even the low card, mid card, or storylines were at least interesting or entertaining to a certain audience. It may not be entertaining for everybody, but for the most part, it was overall entertaining. And what you have now, and it's not a problem with just the women. Although it's probably worse with the women right now. And I think it has a lot to do, there's not a lot of women, so we notice it more than we do the men. But it is a problem on the men's side, is what they do is they pick like 4 or 5 people, and they push them to the moon, and to hell with everybody else. We saw that this past Tuesday. We saw a perfect example of that. Now, am I sitting there saying that Asuka and Mandy Rose was a believable match? No, but but here's the other side of that. I don't blame Mandy Rose for that. I blame WWE. I get it, but I do get it. But the realistic thing about it is that that's a WWE problem.
That is true.
They're not showcasing these women like that. For God's sake, Tori Wilson had a more compelling storyline than half of these women back when Trish and Lita were the big thing.
That's true.
And this is my main gripe. I never get mad at a wrestler, but what I do not appreciate is my intelligence being insulted. And that's what's happening is that you mean to tell me that you're going to make that's why it sounds like I'm just shitting all over this main event is because it's not because I don't want them to be in the main event. I think it's a good thing that we're getting a main event with the women. But the storytelling and how you have told this story has been absolutely atrocious.
Yep.
Yeah, well,
It started out good. It did. It started out good, and then it went to shit.
Right. And
in all honesty, Blue's Clues is written better than fucking WWE.
It's true.
Well, and
So
you know,
with that, go ahead, Gina.
I was just gonna say, like one of the main reasons why, just to kind of touch on what I was saying before, one of the main reasons why we don't have so many characters like Stone Cold, The Rock, Mick Foley. We don't have a lineup like that. It's not because of the physical talent, because all of the athletes are amazingly, like, they're so talented, but a lot of them are lacking mic skills.
Yep.
And one of the biggest things that you need in wrestling, not just WWE, but wrestling in general, if you're going to run a wrestling entertainment promotion, you need to have people that are good on the mic.
And that's where WWE has, and that's why I say a lot of this has to do with WWE because of the fact that they're not taking these guys and properly showing them how to cut a promo. And frankly, you know what? Actually, Big Show did an interview a while back, and he probably said it better than anybody else. Of all people, the Big Show. One of the biggest problems is two things. One is the creative aspect of the product right now. And then number two, it's the fact that people are too nice to each other in the back.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody
So he wants to go back to hazing?
No,
that's not the case. That's not what he was talking about.
Yes.
What he was talking about was everybody's not trying to outdo the other person. They're trying to be supportive. Back then, it was cutthroat. People were trying to vie for that spot, and you're not seeing that.
Yep.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to believe that the competition is real when you see people like, for instance, before they won the tag titles, Bailey and Sasha, they were supposed to be in a feud, but then you see them backstage and they're hugging it out. Like, the fuck, man?
Or you see Becky and Charlotte on fucking Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can't tell me that they don't fucking sit in a goddamn hotel room and fucking talk about fucking shit. They're best fucking friends, people.
I was just gonna say they're best friends in real life, you know.
I mean, goddamn, I got into an argument with somebody on fucking Twitter one fucking day, and I think Heather knows about this. I got an argument with, and Johnny, I think, got an argument with somebody on Twitter one day because the dumb fucker, I said, you know, you guys sit here and say the dumbest shit on fucking Twitter. And I tweeted, as I was tweeting this, I'm like, you do realize that they're probably sitting in a car right now laughing at all you dumb fucking people because you are buying into what they're fucking doing, which is fine. You should. But then you take it to a whole nother fucking level, and now they're really laughing at you because you're an idiot. Not because of the story, not because you're buying in. They're laughing at you because you're a fucking idiot.
Well, and you know, the thing is, like, that's another aspect where social media just kind of sucks because, like, Trish and Lita, for example, after their feud began, they got really close. They're best friends now.
Mm-hmm.
But you never knew that behind the scenes, and that's I mean, of course, kayfabe died, but kayfabe died largely because of social media, because the superstars, they're under the spotlight all the time. I mean, they got the ride-alongs now. The fans are fucking... Huh?
When you put Total Divas on and they're all having lunch and vacationing together.
Yep, and then you got the fans that are following them around everywhere, and they're snapping pictures of them together, getting out of cars together or laughing together, and they're posting them on social media. I mean, that's where I still don't understand how people are having an issue with differentiating the characters to the people.
Exactly.
Because it's pretty fucking obvious that they don't actually care the way characters care. You know what I mean?
Yep, no, I do. All right, so I'm going to move on because I'm going to let the women go at the end here, if that's okay with Bobbit. Okay, is that all right with you, Bobbitt?
I have no problem with that,
Okay,
bro.
so Basement and then Johnny, give me your thought. I know what Johnny's ultimately has to say, but I'm gonna let him say it again, give his final thoughts on it. I'm gonna let Basement go first, and then Johnny, you can finish it off, and then I'm gonna let the women talk about the women's division, just period, bottom line. Okay, is that all right with you guys, Heather?
Yeah.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right, go ahead, Basement. With the question, what do you think they're doing with the women's title and that bullshit that Johnny gave us? That's not his bullshit.
Yeah, don't shoot the messenger.
Or did Basement step away?
He might have stepped away for a second.
All right, Johnny, go ahead and I'll.
I pray to God that they're unifying the titles. I would rather them have built this up if that's what they were going to do. But again, I don't think this was their ultimate plan all along to begin with. But I'm okay with them unifying the titles. I'm okay. I pray to God that's what they do. I think they've shot themselves in the foot here. And with the women, I hate to be the one that says this. I love this crop of women wrestlers are some of the most talented wrestlers that we've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them not so much, but some of them are improving. But I'm going to be dead honest here. I'd much rather have the Attitude Era women than this shit.
Fuck that shit. I don't want puppies.
I'm sorry, but to me, the women's division right now is objectively worse than the women's division in the Attitude Era. It's worse. I don't care about these women and what they're doing in the ring because of how piss poor this storytelling has been.
Okay. I can see what he's saying. I don't think he's saying he wants to see puppies. In fact, I know.
No, I get what he's saying.
Okay.
But I disagree a little bit with what he's saying, but I'll wait until it gets my turn.
No, that's fine. Basement, are you back?
I am.
God damn it! Because I was gonna let you go first and then let Johnny go. But you go ahead. What do you think? Do you think they're unifying the titles? And then give me your thoughts on the women's division as a whole. And then I'm gonna let the women go.
Okay. The titles should be unified. I think we all understand why. I hope they actually get rid of the brand split and get rid of some of the male talent they have just stagnant. In all honesty, the women's division is deep enough to have a main title, a mid-card, and a tag, and that's it. And even then, it's not deep enough for that, but they'd have to bring up some people from NXT to fill it out. If they don't unify the titles, it's a huge mistake. It kills the SmackDown roster, kills the SmackDown title, in my opinion. And if they're just doing it to plant seeds for the future, as now Charlotte's the title holder, you kind of just fucking gave the middle finger to all of the singles talent on the SmackDown roster for Mania.
Agreed.
And that's where I stand.
I cannot disagree. So, that being said, I'm going to move out of here. I'm going to go sit in my chair and watch a Brewer game.
Don't sit in the corner, JP.
You shut up. And then I'm going to let Heather sit here, and the women are going to talk. Now, I'm going to let them try not. I mean, you're probably going to hear me say something, but hopefully I don't intervene. If I do intervene, all the women. Yeah, okay. Smack me one time. See what happens.
JP Lena.
I'll just be like, shut the fuck up, JP.
There you go. Just tell me to shut the fuck up. So I'm going to let the women go as soon as I get up. Heather or Ronnie or Gina, you can start the conversation. Just give me a second.
Come on, old man.
Shut up!
Them little rickety bones.
Hey, baby.
Here we go.
Hi, folks.
All right.
So yeah, with this whole thing going on with the women's division, I agree with everybody. The titles do need to be unified. However, I also agree with Johnny that they needed to be telling this story since they brought out the women's tag team titles to start off with.
Oh, I couldn't agree with that more. And what Johnny, let me clarify. What I was disagreeing with a little bit with you, what you're saying. I understand what you were saying before, but I was disagreeing just a little bit. I agree with the storyline wise, but I do believe that like the in-ring ability of the women these days is a lot better than what it was obviously back in the Attitude Era, which I'm pretty sure that that's what you were saying to begin with. Like I think we're on the same page.
What is it okay if I just clarify that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'm not. When it comes to the in-ring ability, yes, you are correct. I think they are a lot better than what they were back in those days. What I'm talking about is what I meant was, as a whole, when it comes to storyline and how the women are portrayed, because you can be as fantastic in the ring as you can possibly be, but if you're portrayed like shit, you're kind of shit. And no, I wouldn't want all the puppy. I could give a shit less about that. I don't really care. It was there. I'm going to like seeing tits and ass anyway. Hey, I'm a guy. Fucking sue me. But at this point, with the way the women are being portrayed now, I would much rather have the Attitude Era, because at least like when Trish and Lita were going at it, it was interesting, it was engaging, and it was believable, and you were fully invested, which is why, to me, one of the best moments ever on Raw is Trish and Lita main eventing SmackDown, Monday Night Raw. That, to me, is one of the best moments in WWE history.
Mm-hmm.
But you also get that somewhat with Ronda, her being as scripted as she is.
She's not scripted.
I mean, it's just, she doesn't come across believable at times. There's other times she does, and it kind of works with her in-ring ability of how she is and her background. But there's times, and we all said it, she needed to stop the smiling. She still does it. She did that drop the mic shit on Monday, which was annoying as anything. But I understand why they had her do it. And it's just, you got, like Johnny said, you've got to be a believable character. And that's where you get invested when you see them in the ring portraying that character that they're coming across as. And we don't get that with the women here. You get them, their face, their heel, their promo skills aren't matching how they are in the ring, or their in-ring ability doesn't match what they're speaking. And it's just, they don't have everything, which most of...
Or it could be like Nia, who has nothing.
Right.
Exactly.
Good God, don't get me started on that fucking one.
Shut the fuck up, JP. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I told you I would do it, but
I knew you would.
Within the first 5 minutes.
Of course. Come on now, Johnny. Did you expect anything less?
No, I
At least tuck it between your legs,
JP
JP.
Lena for a second.
Well, Brian Romano wanted to laugh. There, he got his laugh.
No,
but I mean, I'm sorry?
No, when it comes down to what we got with the women's division today, we have the talent in ring. We have the talent in some on the mic. We don't have the talent with the writers.
Right.
And that's really hurting this women's division.
Yeah, and I think that not just women, but wrestlers in general, a lot of them are lacking the ability to make it real. You know what I mean? Like, I know back in the day, they used to make the wrestlers take like acting classes, because they need, I don't know, I don't think they still do that. I'm not sure, but they need to not only be able to follow the script, but to make it believable. And honestly, one of the only people that I can think of that can actually do that would be Charlotte and The Miz.
Ronda can do it too, because she's been in movies.
Yeah, but Ronda's so heavily scripted that she's forgotten the script so many times, and I can see her kind of panic. And that's when she starts kind of repeating herself.
She does that, but it's also because of her speech impediment that she has to kind of start over.
Right, you know, and I mean, nobody can blame her. She's got a speech impediment. That's a legitimate medical issue. Nobody's gonna make fun of her or whatever for it. And if you do, then you're an asshole, you know. But well, you're an asshole, so that makes sense.
Right.
But I mean, I feel like they lack the ability to make it believable.
Mm-hmm. A lot of them do, and that's the problem because you have these women that they're trying to push to the moon because of their names, and no, it's not Charlotte. I'm talking about fucking Nia Jax and Tamina Snuka.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Nia Jax is prime example for what I was saying with that because like she's not even that heavily scripted, and the bitch still fucks it up.
Well, and her in-ring is atrocious.
Yeah.
Tamina, for how long she's been in the business. And she's constantly hurt.
The whole problem with Tamina, not to cut you off there, Ronnie, but every time she starts getting somewhat of a push, she gets hurt.
Right.
So it's like, why bother continuing to push this woman and why bother continuing to book this woman if all she's going to do is end up getting hurt? Especially since she's getting old for the business at this point.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, you know, and I think the best thing to answer the question, I think the best thing to do, like Basement said, unify the title. I think it's going to be a horrible move if they don't. Unify the damn title. Fucking finish this storyline so I can be done with it already because I'm done. Like, I'm just so far past done.
Uh-huh.
This Becky and Ronda storyline has essentially turned into Brock versus Roman for me. And that's really sad to say because they haven't even really had their first huge match together yet.
Do you hear her in the background?
I do. It's cool.
She is.
Oh my goodness. Cutie. But anyways, yeah, that's my thought of the women's division summarized. I mean, I think that they have a lot of great in-ring talent, but they're lacking in other aspects. It's kind of like it's the complete opposite almost of the Attitude Era, like Ruthless Aggression era, because like those ladies, they were really damn good on the mic and in every other aspect, but aside from Trish and Lita, not many of them had in-ring ability.
Well, it wasn't just Trish and Lita. It was Trish, Lita, Victoria,
Holly,
Mickie James.
Yeah, I mean, I said Mick. I said Trish and Lita just because those were like two of the most prominent ones. But I mean,
because they're the most relevant at this point because they've essentially buried Mickie James at this point.
Well, and not only that, but they were pretty much like the. I know that, you know, Paige and all these other women love to say, "Oh, I started the women's movement." No, you didn't. Like Trish and Lita started the damn women's movement.
And for Nia Jax to sit there and say, "Oh, I was the first one in the men's Royal Rumble," honey, no, there were 3 women before you.
Yep. Exactly. Oh.
This kid is going crazy with the raspberries over there.
No, I'm laughing.
God. Look at Basement.
And they also need to stop pushing this, first ever that. This is the first time women have done this. I mean, I know they're not doing Evolution, but then there was the talks of doing Queen of the Ring, and it's just that behind the scenes
I wouldn't mind
for publicity and being out there pushing the women the way that they are. That's part of the problem too. You're pushing, and the talent's not living up to the expectation that you're probably presenting to the board and to the fan base. And it hasn't with this feud with Ronda and Becky and Charlotte. It started out in the beginning, okay, we're going to get this match. And then it just went like a crazy straw. It went in all these different directions because there's like so many hands in making it. And there's just, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. Or you got the right hand doing this, and then the left hand saying, okay, well, we need to do this.
Right.
And like I said before, you're pushing okay, we're going to let the fans be the authority, and we're going to give you what you want, but then we're going to change it to the way we want it. And that has happened on a couple of occasions with Vince getting involved.
Right. And to be honest with you, I would not mind Queen of the Ring as long as they brought back King of the Ring as well. And Wise Society, no, it would not be pretty much a given for Charlotte to win Queen of the Ring the very first time, you indignant, feckless cunt.
Whoa.
Okay.
Oh my God. Say it how it is. All right. I get what he's saying because Charlotte is the queen. I get that he's saying that, but I mean, you know, let's face it. I mean, we have who do we have? We had Charlotte is the queen. We had fucking Alexa Bliss is whatever the fuck she was. We have the Empress, the goddess. We have the Empress. Get the fuck out of here with that shit. I mean, if they do Queen of the Ring and they have Charlotte win it, then I'm just gonna be like, you know what? I don't know what to say anymore. I really don't. But then again, it would make sense for her to win it too because she is one of the most talented women on the roster right now.
It is, but you know, it wouldn't be a given that she would win because it would take the entire women's roster to fill out the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be a lot of good matches right there.
And then they would just swirl and push Nia.
Good Lord, Basement, you're killing me.
Oh my God. I can't.
It's the women's time to talk.
But anyway, does anybody else have any other thoughts on this whole thing?
Not really. I can't wait for them to get over with.
Yeah, agreed. I really cannot wait for WrestleMania to be over with.
Oh, speaking of the women, I did see, I guess it was on Twitter, is Rhea Ripley hurt? I saw she had like a boot. Okay.
Yeah, it was her foot that got hurt.
What are you talking about?
Yeah. Ankle.
Guys, did you guys see NXT UK this week?
Mm-mm.
Did you see who debuted on the women's roster?
Yeah.
No, I did not.
Piper
I'm the only one in the
Niven.
house that watches NXT UK. I just haven't had a chance to watch it.
Fuck that shit.
Shit, then I won't tell you. Ignore what I just said.
Oh, I know. Piper Niven.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, she came out on NXT UK, so I was pretty stoked to see her because now they not only have Piper Niven, but they also have oh my God, Heather, who's Jazzy Gabbert, right? But they stuck them on NXT UK. That's the only thing that I have an issue with. Like I would have loved. Sorry.
I think the only reason they did that was because I think Jazzy still has some prior commitments to take care of before she can go anywhere else.
Correct.
Well, I hope that they bring them up to the main roster really quick because I was really hoping to see Jazzy or even Piper go straight to the main roster so that they could have somebody to go up against fucking big ass Nia.
Right.
You know, somebody believable. And Piper Niven, I think she would annihilate Nia.
Well, I think that's why they brought back Beth Phoenix.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Like, why have to bring back, not that I'm complaining that Beth back because she's great, but why have to bring back a legend when you could move newer talent up?
I tell you, can I answer that?
Go ahead.
The answer is very, very simple. Because WrestleMania has never been about new talent. It's always been about nostalgia.
That's true.
It's never been about new talent. And I'm not saying that to disparage the talent, disparage the new talent, but it's never been about them.
Right. Yeah. Oh, excuse me.
Excuse me. All right, with that being said, I think we should be good to end the show here, Bobbit, as long as you don't mention Alexa again.
Too late.
Too late. Oh my goodness. Good talk. All right.
Alright, so with that being said, we'll end the show here. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks to Gina, Basement, Ronnie, all you, and everybody else for coming out and.
Hey, fuck you!
And fuck you too.
And everybody.
Fuck you! I don't give a fuck. I'm not even being thanked Man, you son of a bitch. See if I do another roast of damn yeah.
So, Johnny, I feel like we should feel really special right now.
Listen, you everybody's, you other everybody's.
Hey, Johnny, Alexa loves you.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Oh, for that, okay, you know what? Thank you, folks. That's it. I'm going to go hang myself right now. Thank you. Goodbye.
We might see you guys. I might see you guys next week. I don't know if I still have a spot available or not. But yeah, see y'all next week, either Friday or Saturday. Have a good night.
Jesus fucking Christ, the Alexa voice.
Oh my God.
I want to renegotiate my goddamn contract.